Story 1. I own a house that sits smack in the middle of 3 cattle farms. The other night, I took my dog out to pee well after dark. There was a weird noise and a pair of glowing eyes at the end of my driveway. He was a cow. I called my neighbor to the north. He drove his utility task vehicle down, inspected the cow, did not recognize it, and called my neighbor to the south. The neighbor to the south sent his teenage son over in a car without a catalytic converter and muffler. He also did not recognize the cow. Finally, my neighbor from the west was summoned on his all-terrain vehicle. It was his cow. The rest of us stood there drinking beer and watched him drive the cow home on his all-terrain vehicle. Good times. Story 2. I was driving home in a storm with my mother. A tree fell across the road in front of us. The people in the truck behind us took their chainsaws from their toolbox and removed the tree within 15 minutes. There is not cellular service everywhere. Only one provider works consistently at my house. Story 3. You close your car windows at church in the summer so you do not come back out to a car full of zucchini. Story 4. Legitimately late to school or appointments because you were stuck behind a tractor. Story 5. You or someone you know has a personal vendetta against a wild animal in the area. Story 6. I am standing on my back porch in winter. There is complete silence. Story 7. Weird noises in the woods? Glowing eyes in the shadows? Something following you down a dark country road? There's always fucking deer. Story 8. You should carefully plan your shopping because a trip to Walmart or Home Depot might be a 2-hour round trip. Story 9. Having your name and age listed in the local newspaper after you are pulled over for speeding, and your family and friends get to give you shit for it because everyone loves to read the weekly police report. Story 10. Full-grown pigs are massive and terrifying. They will eat a person if they get the opportunity. Story 11. There is no animal control where I live, and no shelters within 100 miles that will accept strays. If you abandon a cat or dog, it may be killed by predators, starve, or be shot. Story 12. In the country, life moves more slowly compared with the city. In the city, you can go year after year and see new buildings, businesses, events, and more. In the country, the same county fair happens every year. You might see a new building every 10 years and a new business every 5 years. Story 13. The difference between saying you are going to town versus going to the city. Story 14. People wave as 2 cars pass in opposite directions. Story 15. Weather changes your life. I sat on the porch with my parents, watching hail destroy our wheat crop days before harvest. There was nothing to do, we just watched. I also stood in a circle with my parents and my older brother in the yard while we prayed for rain. For farmers, weather is destiny. Story 16. You are probably on well water, which means if the power goes out, you will no longer have water. That also means you will get 1 or 2 toilet flushes, and your household is likely not the electric company's top priority. Choose wisely, or get a generator. Story 17. I am reminded of my time at the University of Iowa. A fellow I knew, the age of a graduate student but not actively attending, walked with a cane because of an injured leg. He had broken it when he was a child, but he would tell anyone who asked that he had been mauled by a sow. He said people from the city would just laugh it off as a joke. People from the country would look at him in horror and say, "And you are still alive?" Story 18. How dark the night is. You can see how many stars there are, how bright and gorgeous they are, and how busy the sky is. Story 19. The nearest fire department is you and your neighbor, who is 10 miles away and has a couple of flatbed trucks carrying 500-gallon water tanks. Story 20. Dogs. Darn it. People just drive out and drop off unwanted dogs. Once a coward dumped a mother dog and her 6 puppies near my front lawn. I hope there is a special place in hell for those people. Story 21. In the city, people ignore sirens and listen for gunshots. In the countryside, people ignore gunfire and listen for sirens. Story 22. When you live in a small town and get into trouble outside it, the news gets back before you do. Story 23. Rural Australia, living here. The water comes from a bore. The sky feels inexplicably bigger. Do not drive at night if you can help it, because you will hit a kangaroo. The stars are like nothing you have ever seen. Leave town and you have no reception. What is a traffic light? Cook your own dinner or you are not eating. Nearly everyone owns a beaten-up Uda. The nearest hospital is 4 hours away, and the local airport is a shed in the bush. Story 24. I leave my doors unlocked when I am away, so the neighbors can get in if they need something. I often use my sleeping porch. We walk through each other's property without being rebuked. No one can hear me if I scream. Story 25. If you do not make dinner, you do not eat. There is no Uber Eats or Grubhub and no delivery pizza or takeout unless you want gas station food. Most nearby places close at 5 p.m. on weekdays and have extremely limited hours or are closed entirely on weekends. Can be very peaceful. Story 26. Nature is brutal and so are animals. That eagle is majestic in the city, but out here I curse its existence for ruining my chickens. Bears are cute, but they are frustrating when they try to get into the shed where we have to lock up our garbage cans. Deer are beautiful, but they eat every leaf off a fruit tree sapling and kill it. Not to mention the destruction they will cause if your vegetable garden fence is not high enough. That said, I am still a strong advocate for wildlife and their protection. I'm just saying that out here we are part of the food chain, so to speak, whereas in the city you are removed from many of those inconveniences. Story 27. Sounds are not the scary part. Silence is. When I was 10, I was walking with my 8-year-old sister and our dog. Suddenly the world went completely silent and the dog froze, crouching close to the ground. I unclipped her leash. The dog bounded home while my sister and I ran to the road. A short time later my father drove up with the dog and a rifle. We had only been about a mile away. As we drove away, we saw a mountain lion in the tree line. Story 28. If I call the emergency number 911, nobody will be here for at least 30 minutes for emergency medical services, 45 minutes for the fire department, and an hour for the police, and that assumes they have nothing else to do and respond immediately. If the house is on fire, call the neighbors. In less than 10 minutes, there will be half a dozen tractors with water tanks and hoses. If you lop off your foot, call the neighbors. They will drive you to the emergency room. If somebody intends to do you harm, shoot back or die waiting for the sheriff. Your choice. Story 29. A gas station can serve about 10 functions. The rural gas station I worked at did the following: arcade and game room, gym and weightlifting, pool supplies and pool servicing, feed and seed, mini storage, custom firearms, hunting and fishing supplies, batting cages. It also had a wine cellar that sold quality wines and craft beer. Story 30. I know. I am buried. You can never fully explain what it is like on quiet nights when there are no insects chirping, like in winter. I live on the outskirts of a small town, a mile from the railroad tracks. Even though there was snow on the ground and in the trees, and dozens of houses between me and the tracks, it sounded as if I were standing next to a train at 3 a.m. It was extremely loud. Alternatively, you cannot prepare someone for how soothing a summer night can feel. Sitting on the porch, hearing the wind move softly through the trees, insects harmonizing their sweet tones, lightning bugs flitting about, blinking in a chaotic fashion. You just close your eyes, sip your drink, and feel almost completely relaxed. Story 31. Those cute little foxes sound like screaming banshees at night. Story 32. There was peace and quiet, but an aunt from the city who was staying could not sleep because she was unaccustomed to the silence. Story 33. I grew up extremely rural and now live in an urban area. 1. You need a car. There is no walking anywhere. You go into town a few times a month if you do not work there. When I was growing up, my dad worked in a small town next door and my mom worked in the village next to that. We did not go to the city but once a month to get groceries when my dad got paid. If you do not buy groceries, then you either get them at the gas station at a high price or you must drive 30 miles to the city. 2. We lived so rural there was no cable television. We had satellite or an over-the-air antenna. You were the last to get anything. A new channel, a new road, cell phone service, or internet access. My brothers still live in the old home place and there is no cable. It is satellite or streaming, and the internet is still digital subscriber line. 3. Most people who live there are families and know each other. About half of my classmates had parents who graduated together. One of my best friends was best friends with my mom in school. Everyone knows your business. I drove a vehicle that stood out because it was bright yellow. I used to get a text message every time I left my house asking where I was going from someone who saw me. 4. Life is slow. People in cities like Dallas and Phoenix say there is nothing to do. Come to the rural area, you make your own fun or there is none. 5. Modern conveniences do not exist. There is no ride-hailing service, no food delivery apps, and no pizza delivery. Local restaurants close around 7 or 8 in the evening, and the gas station may serve food for a short time before closing. If you want pizza, fast food, or Sonic, you will drive at least 30 minutes to the city. There is no delivery or just walking up the street. 6. This also applies to emergency services. In my parish, which is equivalent to a county, we fell under the sheriff, and it was common for there to be only 2 deputies patrolling at night. If you need help, both deputies may be tied up, and it may take time to find someone nearby. Emergency medical services and volunteer fire personnel must be summoned from home, so response will take a minute or 2 longer. Story 34. Many fake country folk overhype the woods. Anytime someone mentions a skinwalker, that is a red flag. I live in the woods. Yes, the forest can be scary, but it is far from paranormal. The woods are a fine place to explore and to gain an appreciation for real, tangible nature. Don't let the boogeyman scare you away from the biodiversity native to your area. Buy a field guide so you can get out and learn something. Story 35. Sometimes you need a firearm to ensure the safety of your animals, and that does not make you a gun enthusiast. Story 36. The little wave you give when passing a vehicle going the opposite direction on a country road. Bonus points if you are cool enough to raise your first 2 fingers off the steering wheel. Saying hello to a stranger on a hiking trail, or at least offering a small nod and smile. I can always tell someone is not from here when I say hello on a hike and they look at me like I am an alien. Story 37. No sidewalk? Walk against traffic. We learned this as kids. We now live in the suburbs, but my husband and I both grew up in the same rural area where this was drilled into us. It blows my mind to see adults walking with traffic in the suburbs where there are no sidewalks. I always want to scream at them to walk against traffic so they can see. It is for their own good. Walking against traffic puts you in a better position to see and avoid hazardous vehicles. Walking with your back to traffic is not a good vantage point, especially now when most pedestrians use earbuds. Update. I also find myself doing it in parking lots and even when there is a sidewalk. At age 53, it is ingrained. Story 38. I'm a rancher, and thanks to Starlink, I am an avid personal computer gamer. Life is different, but also the same in some ways. We are 4.5 hours from the nearest city with a population larger than 10,000, and a city of 10,000 is 2.5 hours away. Work is certainly different. I spend far more time on a horse than in a vehicle for most of the summer months. After working all day, I like to relax and play games like the rest of you. Story 39. My children get 2 days off from school every year to attend the rodeo. Story 40. The mild terror you feel when you hear a fox screaming at 3 a.m. outside your window. Story 41. You cannot buy a rural property on the cheap and then have big city expectations about the state of your neighbors' properties or their behavior. Welcome to Redneckville. Sometimes old washing machines sit in the front yard, and people park their 18-wheeler rigs in front of their houses and noisily warm them up every morning at 4 a.m. Story 42. There are thousands of inescapable mosquitoes. They are enormous and literally crunch when you kill them. I moved 4 states away to a city, so I no longer hear that high-pitched buzzing. Now I hear gunshots every night, which I prefer. Story 43. I'm the city girl who moved to the country. Everyone here sees deer as a nuisance or as dinner. 6 years in, my dumb self still thinks they're magical. Story 44. My wife used to make fun of me when we first got married for saying I was going to town anytime I needed to go to the grocery store or Home Depot. That was understandable since we lived in the middle of a mid-sized city. It was a habit from living in the sticks my whole life. My revenge was moving her to a very remote part of Appalachia. Now she has to go to town every day. Story 45. You will never find another job that pays as much as your last one. Story 46. Dress up for the auction and the fair because you will run into people you know. Story 47. 1. You are likely to see a lost or abandoned baby rabbit, bird fledgling, or fawn at some point. There is a 98% chance it does not need your help. The best thing you can do is walk away. 2. You can free-range your chickens or other fowl, but you will lose some to predators. You are not allowed to shoot hawks. If you do not like that risk, keep your birds in a large run. 3. Deer, bears, foxes, and other wild animals are not pets. They are wild and can and often will hurt you if you get too familiar. 4. You must fence your dog or keep it on a leash. If your dog attacks someone's livestock, pets, neighbors, or children, or otherwise acts aggressively, it will likely be shot and the law will be on the neighbor's side. It does not matter if the aggression was an attempt to play. 5. You are not allowed to jump someone's fence to pet their cows, horses, or other animals. Those animals may injure or kill you because you are a stranger. 6. Just because you cannot see anyone living in an area does not mean you may dump your trash there, hunt there, or otherwise act as if you own the property. Story 48. I know what real quiet and real darkness are like. I have spent time in the city and in the middle of nowhere, and I felt my mental health improve and my stress level drop. There is nothing like lying in a hammock in a cool breeze when the nearest person is at least a quarter of a mile away. Story 49. Farm dogs roam. Do not pick them up. Leave them alone. Story 50. See that driveway? Someone has to plow it. You manage your own water, sewage, and waste. No, that does not go down the drain. Yes, the water is treated and drinkable. You have a generator because when the power goes out, it stays out for days at a time. You have a pantry because running out of rice or salt means an hour or more drive. You fix your own things because getting an electrician, plumber, or carpenter is hard as hell. You drive a vehicle with enough clearance because you need it. The man cutting hay across most of the land has been doing it since before you were born. He chooses the time, 6 in the morning. Your small truck is a joke out here. Story 51. Dumping animals because you think someone will keep them often leads to their death from raccoons and coyotes. Stop doing this. Story 52. There is a lack of choices. Either we go to Walmart or Dollar General. Otherwise, we are not shopping anywhere. At least now we can order online. Story 53. Going out to a nice place means you pay a lot for food cooked by someone who just learned to cook, or you go to Applebee's. That's fancy. Story 54. That time of year when the entire village smells of manure wafting gently from the fields, rather than the usual odor from horses passing through. Story 55. There is absolute peace there. There are no sirens, no blaring personal soundtracks, and no traffic noise. The air is cleaner, the nights are darker with fewer streetlights, and there is more wildlife and nature. I have lived in New York City and would not trade this for the best apartment there. Story 56. Toilets do not flush when the power is out if your home is on a well. They may flush once, but that is all. Story 57. There is value in peace and quiet. Meditation and yoga classes do not count. I mean sitting on your back porch with nothing but the sounds of birds chirping. It makes you feel more alive than anything else. Story 58. Just how safe it was. For 13 years I did not lock my car. Half the time I left the keys in the ignition. Many spring and autumn nights I went to sleep with the front and back doors open. The windows were open all the time, even when I was away. It was also easy to accumulate pets. At one point I had 12 cats because strays would show up and never leave. Story 59. You can leave things out in the world, and they will still be there when you return. Story 60. If we are driving slowly, it is because the deer just got the word that we are coming and cannot wait to hurl themselves onto our windshield. Stop tailgating. We are not doing it to annoy you. The deer are just sneaky. Story 61. Those of us in urban and inner-city communities have much more in common than differences. We share challenges such as food deserts, poverty, being ignored, and parents juggling multiple jobs to support us. We need to unite and find common ground. Story 62. Walking in the woods is not a death sentence. Yes, there are some large game animals that could kill you out west, but 99.9% of wooded areas are not death traps, including off-trail areas. Most animals are afraid of humans and immediately run away. I can walk for miles in the Northeast and never see an animal or worry about being attacked by the docile animals we have here. Story 63. We need large trucks so we can haul large items. I do not have to cut my grass if I do not want to, and I will not receive fines from the city. Story 64. We burn brush piles and operate equipment early and late. You do not have to call emergency services for everything. Rural first responders are probably busy doing the same. Investigate and verify. Story 65. We yell to each other over fences all the time. My neighbor once knocked on my kitchen window to borrow sugar. Most importantly, we know one another. Your problems are our problems, and we look out for everyone. In my area, we are one large extended family. Story 66. You get used to random gunshots. It doesn't faze me at all, and I can tell the difference between a shotgun and a handgun or rifle. Sirens, on the other hand, are very rare and always get my attention. Also, how loud they can be. It is nighttime here in the southeastern United States, and I am listening to an army of tree frogs. I get woken up by many different small birds. Sometimes I can hear a far-off neighbor's rooster starting around 4:30 a.m. Story 67. Rural folk do not mess around with road rage. Chances are good you will see them again. Story 68. As a lifelong New York City resident, I want to say to any rural people on this thread that most city residents do not look down on those who live in your area, despite what you might hear. Speaking for myself, I respect your livelihoods and sometimes envy living in your open spaces. I want us all as Americans to appreciate our differences and get along. Live and let live. I would love to attend a country hootenanny. Thank you. Story 69. The joy of driving around town without having to wait at traffic lights. I dread the day my hometown becomes that large. Story 70. You will make room for tractors and never pass them aggressively. They are working. You are not. Story 71. Remember the butter, or it's 14 miles down the mountain and 14 miles back up. Story 72. The actual need is to be able to defend yourself and your family with firearms. Police response to my location would probably take about 25 to 30 minutes, by which time many terrible things could have happened. Additionally, bears are a big problem here. Story 73. You have to actually think about your water consumption because you rely on well water. You start measuring water in terms of how many loads of laundry or showers you have left before you run out, and then you have to order a water truck delivery. Story 74. You have your fridge and freezer, and then you have your garage freezer. Animals do not act like they do in Disney movies. They are wild, territorial, sometimes vicious, and sometimes carry diseases. Do not try to pet that raccoon. It may have rabies. Those are not piglets. They are wild boars and can be dangerous. Finally, if you hear whistling in the woods at night, do not whistle back. Story 75. You have to mind your own business and be okay with everyone knowing everything you do. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.